Hi, Premier Ezra Levant from Rebel News. And first of all, I just want to say thanks to you for allowing a spectrum of journalists to ask you questions that's different than your federal Liberal counterparts. My question is about Nutrien, the Saskatchewan company that chose to export through the United States, in part because of the political risks associated with going through BC. There were some other issues too, but have you contemplated if Premier Eby and the extremists and just the cost impositions of this MOU deter a pipeline from going west, would you consider a pipeline going south through the United States, or even reigniting the Keystone XL pipeline that has not only Donald Trump's support, but allegedly the Liberal government's support? Do you have a plan B?
I don't want to give up on plan A, which is to get a pipeline to the northwest BC coast, because quite frankly, that was the one we always should have built. That was the one that would have opened up the most new markets for us, and I think it's the one that is going to be the most profitable from a point of view of being able to build new lines. We'll continue doing that work. When it comes, there's a couple ways I look at Nutrien's decision. I have spoken with the Heisla band, who manages the Kitimat export facility, and they were disappointed. They would have liked to have been considered on that. I know that they're not that keen on a bitumen pipeline, but they are keen on developing their infrastructure for everything else. So I'll make sure to raise that with Premier Moe to see if there are future opportunities to look at the potential for Kitimat. The second thing I'd say is it's pretty clear that a lot of the problems that we have in Canada are related to work stoppages. Airlines, ports, rail lines. It's been just a rotation, one after the other after the other. And I noticed with some interest in the federal budget that they are creating a mechanism to order binding arbitration with limits around policy and around the potential cost for government. So I'm looking at that legislation, thinking if you can get work stoppages completed faster and still be able to have a mechanism to resolve them through binding arbitration that doesn't leave an open end, that may create the kind of certainty that we're looking for. I know that when I was talking with our federal counterparts, I said, you gotta do something, because I felt like every day or every other day for a solid 6-month period, I was asking for them to end one strike or another. So we've got to fix that. If we're going to be a reliable supplier, we have to make sure our supply chains are secure, are truly secure.
Thanks.
Sheila Gunn-Reid, Rebel News. Premier Smith, I want to ask you about the increase in the industrial carbon tax in the MOU. It's something that the federal Conservatives say is a deterrent to investment. I think our competitors internationally also feel it's a deterrent to investment. OPEC doesn't have it, Russia doesn't have it, the United States doesn't have it, of course. Brookfield is heavily invested in pipelines in other parts of the world. How do you reconcile that with encouraging pipeline investment to Alberta? Is there a private sector pipeline company that is even floating the notion of investing in Alberta?
Well, I'll deal with those in two parts. So I guess the first one I would say is we negotiated a decrease to the carbon tax because it was slated to go up to $170 by 2030. And we persuaded the Prime Minister that that was just going to be crushing to our industry and we needed to moderate that. And so we had frozen it to send a message that we just didn't think it could go up at that rate. And now we'll have a negotiation to see how quickly we get to 130 and what factors we would look at. I would encourage you maybe to talk to to private industry, because we've had a industrial carbon price since 2007, and you've got a number of companies that are investing in emissions reduction technologies who need a certain carbon price to make that worthwhile. And then you've got other companies who are payers. And so there is, that's a bit of the push and the pull, is that there's a price that's going to make sure that we do not dampen investment, but there's also a price that we need to have to motivate more of the investment in the emissions reduction technology. When we went out and consulted on this, when we froze the price at 95, we'd actually considered rolling it back. And enough of the consultation feedback came back saying, keep it where it is. But there is, I think, an upper limit to how far we can go and how fast, and that's what we'll negotiate. When it comes to pipelines, I'll tell you, the way pipelines get built is they go out and do an open season, and they say, is there anyone willing to pledge barrels? And when we had an emissions cap, the answer would be no, because what's the point? Because you're just going to have to shut in production by 2035 if those rules were in place. If you have a tanker ban, what's the point? If you can't load the tankers up. And so with the acceptance of a carve-out, with the elimination of the emissions cap, we believe that some of those open seasons are going to go ahead, and that we'll start seeing private proponents come forward. The one I'm looking at as probably the first project is Enbridge's mainline expansion. They want to expand 400,000 barrels. The next one I would look at would be the Trans Mountain pipeline. Even David Eby and I agree on that one. I think they've said that they could go up 360,000 barrels. And then I know South Bow is working on using the old Keystone assets that they acquired from TC Energy to see if they can get a pipeline south. So we've been in active discussions with the United States to see what kind of opportunity there might be to do more pipelines going south, as well as Doug Ford, how we might be able to get more going east. I read today that even François Legault said that maybe a pipeline to Quebec wouldn't be impossible. So the entire attitude towards oil and gas development has changed, even in Quebec. And a little more work to do in British Columbia, but we're going to continue to do that work.